Hello, right, this is part 2 of the VirtualBox tutorial. I'm just going to start up VirtualBox. I'm just going to minimize this window. That's Control, the Windows key, Windows key and N, or Meta and N as it's also called. That you can see it's now minimized. Control, the Windows key, and N will bring it back. So Windows key N to minimize, Control Windows key and bring it back. You get the idea. Windows key R, Virtua or Virt something, and then tab completion, and then we'll bring up our VirtualBox. There we go. So from the last one, we made a virtual machine. We gave it some RAM. We gave it a place for a hard drive to use. We set a dynamically allocated drive to it, and we told it that the DVD-ROM drive was the drive that we wanted for it to boot from in the boot sequence first. So just going to boot it up again now. Boot straight into the disk as you'd expect it to. Now this is the Wheezy one. There is now, sorry, this is the Squeeze one. There is a Wheezy one, which is like a grey and silvery kind of GUI interface that starts up now. I didn't happen to have that one to hand, but it's exactly the same. No difference whatsoever. So let's go on. Install, pretty self-explanatory. That installs it. Gives you more options. It's more GUI related way of doing things, same as this. It doesn't give you the full options that you can get. It's much better to go to advanced options and then go to expert install, because then you get the full scope of what you're doing. Other ways that are out of the scope of this video: rescue mode if you have problems with the grub bootloader, if you need to get into a terminal, if you need to recover something, say your FS tab is erroneous for some reason. Maybe you made your universal identifier was wrong and it's not booting and you've got problems. These are the sort of things you can do there. Automated, it would just do defaults. Graphic expert install, never used it. Same as the rescue mode, graphical rescue mode, I think is the same as the rescue mode, it's just a graphical version. And graphical automated install does the same as the automated install, just does it graphically. Right, so anyway, let's go back to expert install. Let that load up. And just to reiterate once again, I'm no way an expert in doing any of this. I just know what I do works, and it allows me to do what it is that I like to do, which is to browse the internet, to be able to download data from the internet, as well as being able to use a PC and a system for its, for a purpose that generally isn't anything to do with gaming. So you're greeted with a group of options anyway. Each one of them you go through, don't do them out of order, because the whole point of this is once you've done that one, it will automatically jump to the next one, to the next one, to the next one, to the next one, etc, etc, etc. So choose language, that should do that. Okay, it's pretty self-explanatory. I am in the United Kingdom, so I'll pick that. Same as that. Any extra keyboard alerts, don't need that. Tab is how you move around, like this. Plus spacebar will let you select particular things. Up and down arrow keys do the same. So you can do this very quickly. Select keyboard layout, PC styles okay, British English is okay for me. Feel free to do this a lot slower. Pause it if you're not sure. Protect to mount CD-ROM. USB storage. Sometimes if you've got a server, for instance, your server is an older server, it will ask you for extra drivers at this point. If you've got some bespoke old bit of software, which you can just download from the internet, download the bin file, the binary file, put them on a USB stick, and then put it in the machine, and as simple as that, and it will just mount it and install it. I don't have any PCMCIA cards, so I'm not worried about that. So if I do Windows key J, and now if you see at the top here, I'm moving between the windows. So Windows key J again, move to this one, now Windows key N, move that, so now I can get this all into one view. CD-ROM detection detected, that's good. Load components from CD. Now personally, not going to go through all of these, but I don't turn any of these on. I try and do a minimalistic install as much as possible, trying to get the operating system installed as fast as possible, and then I can add what I want. A lot of people like doing it differently, a lot of people like to add particular things, but then you can't decide what versions and what it is you really want to do. You are just taking the stuff that's from the disk, from the time that you've got here. That's why personally I'm going to leave that blank. Okay, just going to wait for that. Okay, that's now done. Take network card there. Okay, that's done. Configure the network. Configure with DHCP. That's fine for me. If you want to put in a static IP there, you can. Hostname, the hostname of the machine. Call it whatever you like. I'm just going to leave it as demo because I don't have any purpose for doing this. If you've got a web server and you want to have a redundant web server, and you might have an SMTP relay server, whatever it is that you've got, it's sensible to call things, you know, maybe -1 or primary or backup or something that makes sense. Domain name, if you want a domain, that will be on there as well, but it depends on what you want to do. All of this is configurable and changed afterwards as well, so it's not a one-off thing. Set up user, shadow passwords. If you want it to make it more secure, I'm going to enable that. Allow root login. I'm going to say yes to that. Now, a lot of people wouldn't do that. Now, I'm going to do that so that I can log in as root. I can install my sudo, etc., etc. from the command line. I can do the things that I need to do, and then I can disallow it and turn it off when need be. But for the purpose of security and what I'm doing here, that isn't an issue for me, but it might be for you. So it all depends on what you're trying to do. If you're in a business environment, that might be different. Okay, give yourself a password. And then re-enter it. Create a normal account. Call my account demo. Call the username demo. I'll give it a password. And I re-enter that. Configure the clock. Use NTP. NTP is a time server, so if you're already connected to the internet, that'll work. Obviously, if you're not connected to the internet at the moment, that won't work. Detect the drives. Let's see what drives I've got in there. The partitioning table. This will now find the dynamically located drive that I've got already. Okay. Now this. Okay. So using tied disk, and set up LVM, logical volume media. That's what that is. The point of that is that you can encrypt your hard drives so that if you've got sensitive data around you, if you want to, you know, you've got a work environment where you're worried about security, you're worried about other people gaining access, and maybe theft of your systems. If someone stole your system, they got your hard drives, they put your hard drive in their computer, they wouldn't be able to boot from it, because as soon as it boot, it will ask for the encrypted password to be set. So if you don't put the password in, then obviously you won't be able to see any of the data is on there. Now that sounds obviously like a much better way to do all the time for absolutely everything. The only problem with doing that, which I've come across, which is why I'm not going to do it, because I don't need to in this circumstance, is if in a work environment same as I've got, I set up a web server about 6 months ago. When I did so, had a power issue. The machine rebooted, and as the server rebooted, it then asked me for the password. I can't SSH in and do that. I have to go to the building and type the password in manually. There's no other way around it. So that was a fun Saturday morning going into work and doing that, as you can expect. Wasn't massively happy about that, but that's all you can do. So if that is an issue with having to be on site, maybe your box is a cloud box, maybe it's in a different country. You know, that is a real problem for you if you can't get to that box and do that directly. So for the time being, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to do guided using entire disk. Select drive, that is what I've created earlier. That is the size of which we allocated earlier to the dynamically available disk. So that's what it's going to do at the moment, but as we say, it will get bigger if it needs to. SDA, there as you can see, I can't put the mouse on it, but SDA in brackets, that is the naming scheme that has been given to the hard drive, and as it's the first hard drive, it's been given A. So SDA, SDB, SDC might be a hard disk drive, etc., etc. Same as this is what partition table you want to do. If you want to partition different things into different places, you can of course change that as well. If you want to, after this, you can use fdisk to find out exactly what you've got. You can repartition and reallocate stuff, but that's really out of the scope of what we're doing at the moment, and for most people you won't need to do that to start with. If you've got a lot of log files in Apache, for instance, for your web server, you might want to put more in var. You know, it depends on what you're trying to do, and you know, if you need space to be moved around from where you are to something else, maybe into /user or opt if you've got lots of applications and things that you've installed. It just depends where you need your data. You want to make and allocate a larger partition to that particular destination. If your data isn't in any of those destinations, then it will just go to /, so the rest of it will be available in /. But for the moment I'm just going to use one, and then that's just telling me exactly what it is, the summary of what I've just done. So there is a primary 8.2 gigabyte file system, which is ext3, which is on /, because I haven't specified it to be anywhere else, that's why it's all on /, and 401 meg on swap. So we'll finish and say, yeah, that's good, we can do that. Is this another verification? Is this definitely what we want to do? Yes, it is. As it's a quick partition and it's creating things, it's not going to take very long. It's not formatting anything. Installing the base system. So what I'm going to do, I'll pause this video at the moment because I'm sure you won't want to watch this the whole way through, and then we will continue when it's done. Okay, so we're back. So now, what kernel do we want to install? Because I've got an AMD processor, that's why we're seeing AMD 64 on the end of there. The 2.632-5, that's a later version than 2.6, as you would expect. There's also now 3.2 kernel that you'll probably see with Wheezy, but because this is an older version, because this is Squeeze, we're not seeing that. So I'm going to install this version. Okay, I'm going to include all of the drivers. Because they're so small, I don't really see the point in only specifically including what you need, unless of course you've got a security problem again and you're worried about people putting in maybe USB sticks or something that has got some special drivers to be able to do something to your box, and you only want exactly what you say to be on the box from a driver perspective as well, and load all the modules that you want. Personally, I think that's a bit over the top for what I need, because you will need root or super user privileges to be able to mount any form of mass storage device in the first place anyway. Okay, so that's done now. Now let's configure the package manager. Do I have any other disks? You can download, I think there's 7 different CDs or 1 DVD. So if you want to go through disk to disk to disk, you could do that. I don't need to do that, so there's no need, as I've got an internet connection. Don't want to use a network mirror? Yes, I do. I like to use HTTP. I'm from the United Kingdom. Personally, I like to use this mirror. I like to use Oxford University. Most people don't. Most people use this one because it's the default, but I like to help out the university, so that one I shall choose. I don't have a proxy, I'm going directly to my gateway. do I want to use non-free software? Yes I do, so I can do backports, etc. and things like that. Just let it grab the files and I'll be back soon. Okay, so now what services do I want to use? Do I want to use security updates and volatile updates? Yes I do. There isn't really any risk in using them unless you know, you have a package that is really badly broken, but even if it's in volatile, it's still good enough to work unless you want to use every single feature of it usually. Select and install software. This once again I will be choosing nothing to make it as minimalistic as possible, so then I get the power of choosing what it is exactly that I want from scratch. I've got no interest in using GNOME or KDE or a web server or an SMTP server. By default I want to add everything that I want myself, so it's just populating a list of bits and bobs at the moment of different packages, of which I'm going to say no to all of. So we'll just wait for that to happen and I'll be back. Okay, so back again now. Do I want to install the VirtualBox operating system extension guest for X11? Yes I do, because I'm using VirtualBox. If I wasn't, I wouldn't get that option, so we'll just answer that. Pretty self-explanatory, and I shall wait for this to retrieve everything it needs to continue. Okay, so it's asking me if I want to participate in the usage survey. Not particularly. Should man and ManDB be installed? You can read through that and you can make that decision yourself if you believe it's a security risk to you or not. I just say no, I haven't found any use for it myself at the moment. I've never used it personally. That doesn't mean to say that you won't use it, but I don't need it. Okay, so this is where I will select absolutely nothing, so I unhighlight everything as I said before, so that I can choose what I want to install afterwards. So then you've just got a full idea of what's going on with your operating system. Okay, let's install the Grub bootloader. That is the bootloader. So when you boot up, if you've got different partitions or different hard drives and you want to boot from, maybe you have Backtrack or you have SUSE or Windows 7 or Windows Server 2008 or QNX, so then you can pick and select between what's going on between them. Do I want to use a grub user as a master boot record? In this case, yes. You might not want to do that if your master boot record, you already had a different grub for your master boot record, or if you had Windows 7 as your master boot record and you wanted to keep that instead of this, and you just wanted to change the boot priority on the BIOS for that particular hard drive when you wanted to boot up to this particular operating system, then you might not want to do that. So that's something to think about, but I'm going to say yes to that. Okay, so let's finish the installation. Actually, before we do that, just as a word, what you can do, what I've just done there is I've pressed Alt and F2. What that allows me to do, if I press Enter, now I'm at a console. That's really useful. It means during an installation, if I've got a problem with DHCP connecting, for instance, if I need to ping something, just to make sure, to see if there's a reason why. I might be BusyBox ping. Let's have a look. Should be able to do that. Okay, let's have a look at BusyBox. Okay, it seems like this particular version, that's interesting, I wasn't aware of that. So I can't do, can't use the ping command at the moment with this particular version of Squeeze, but you definitely can with Wheezy, so that's interesting to know. Okay, so let's finish that installation. Well, so say there's something else you wanted to do. You want to look at the disk file system to see what's happened. You want to look at DNS, for instance, and see what's currently set up. If you've got an issue you want to connect to a particular DHCP server, you've just got that availability there where you can do some diagnostics and test and feel like you actually got some control and not just watching a progress bar. You can do that as need be. Okay, so let's finish the installation. Yes, it is. That's to do with my clock. I'll let that continue. Installation is complete. Fantastic. And that will then reboot, and then we'll be able to log into our very first terminal and continue from there. So here we have the Grub bootloader, and that's booted. To the top one, there's only a 5-second timeout. That's why it's so quick. It's just going to go through, find exactly what I've got, and then get to a terminal. Okay, and there it is. So then we log in with our root user and continue from there. So we shall continue that in the next video. I hope that all made sense. Please comment on anything that I might have missed. Hopefully I haven't given any incorrect information to anyone, but if so, please let me know. Cheers.